What's up, guys? We're back again. Week three is here. Week two is coming. Gonna mainly recap week two. Some of the games this week aren't that great, but I'm joined once again. I'm Robert Bentulan, joined by Alec Ede and Trent Wasser. What's up, guys?
Going on.
Alex got the FSU
Doing
jersey on
well.
still. Good, man. All right, let's get right into it, man. Let's get to some of the games of the week. Obviously, last week everyone had the game of the week as Texas and Alabama. And look, I got to give Alec his props, man. He called it here, and he said that Texas is going to go into Tuscaloosa and win, and sure they did that pretty handsomely too, man. Quinn Ewers looked great. That offense looked great. Defense at the end came together. On the flip side, Nick Saban and his Alabama offense, Milton didn't look too hot. Defense kind of got shaky at the end. So, with that said, Alec, I'll give you first dibs since you called the win. What'd you think about that game?
Well, I just had a feeling that this year, especially after playing Alabama last year, Texas would come out and have a different approach to this game. It's not, going and facing the scary Alabama anymore. It's look, we played this team, we almost beat them. Let's actually do it this year. And that was one of the reasons why I thought they had a chip on their shoulder. A big reason for me was like the new quarterback situation at Alabama. And it's not to say that Milroe isn't a good quarterback. I think he'll do just fine, but he's young and he hadn't faced that sort of pressure really. In Texas, their defensive line's pretty good. They brought a lot of pressure and they had them kind of jumping around in the pocket all game. So I thought on the defensive end they held their own. But yeah, Ewers definitely has developed a lot since last year. Especially, he got injured last year and they were looking really good beforehand. But um, he was the number one player in the country, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely the number one quarterback. And he proved it that night. But I don't think it's dispositive of anything for either of these teams for the season. Texas plays in the Big 12. It's usually survival of the fittest out there. Last year, TCU kind of came out there almost unscathed, but that rarely happens. So I'm sure Texas will have some tough games moving forward. But Alabama, it was a good test. I saw in Saban's post game, he said, we knew this was a test going in, and we did fail the test, but he said it's the midterm, it's not the final, and I agree with him. And I like that approach. He knows what he's doing as a head coach, so I'm sure they'll be okay.
Yeah, you said it well, Alec. Trent, it seems like ever since Urs shaved off the mullet, dude, he's looked a lot better. This was a guy who I think left high school early one year, right, to join Ohio State because he had a lot of that's when the NIL started to really kick in. And this guy was extremely, extremely hyped. I remember just getting into college football. He had one of the biggest arms. People were talking about him as the next great thing, and it's just nice to see him bounce back and beat a solid Alabama team, man.
Yeah, I mean, after last season, I knew Ewers was good, but I wasn't really totally sold on him. Hence why I picked Alabama to win last week. But he really looked like the real deal, like as advertised last week. It's quite easy to forget after the third quarter. I mean, Bama was winning. It was 16-13 after the third, but that fourth quarter, man, Sark just dialed it up, and I wasn't able to watch the game, or at least the full game live, because I was at the game, but I did watch like the condensed version. And that fourth quarter just seemed like Saban had no answer for Sark, and it's very rare where you see Saban kind of just have no answer for an offense. So I thought that fourth quarter was eye opening for Texas. Might have been the best quarter they've had in a long time against a team like that.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly impressed by Ewers, but also a little disappointed in Milroe. I thought Milroe would be a little better. Obviously, he's still young. He's still got a long way to go, and clearly he has talent. But um, I think Alabama having some uncertainty from a production standpoint in the QB room is an issue. And I said that going into the season that if they can't figure out the quarterback situation or get the QB production that they're used to, that there's a chance they don't make the CFP again. And if Milroe can't up that production or find someone that will, then I think it's going to be the similar story of them not making the CFP.
Yeah. You guys are right, man. Milroe is talented, but needs to obviously some more seasoning. It's really hard to expect someone to go out there and win Trent and I thought, but look, Texas is really good. Sarkisian is obviously has an elite offense. We all know that. It's can he put it together in big games? He did this time. Yeah, we're gonna find out this season what Texas is made of. But right now, man, they look like a serious threat to make the playoff.
Yeah, like Alex said, or I guess what Saban said is, it's still more of a midterm than a final. It's easy to overreact the first 2 weeks of the season, but they do look good and they do look like some early favorites at this point.
Yep. Alec, any last words on Texas?
No, you guys got to learn to listen to me a little bit more.
All right. Well, they should have listened to us last week because we all chose UM to lose. And guess what? They bounced back and they came home and arguably had the biggest win since Notre Dame. And look, this is a great win. This is the biggest win in the Mario Cristobal era. He needed this win, in my opinion, and it was a beautiful performance offensively. Look, this was Tyler Van Dyke's best game, in my opinion. I mean, he really was spectacular. Made almost every throw, made every big play he needed to do. The run game was great. Receiver stepped up. Restrepo played awesome. Trent, obviously, you're one of the biggest Canes fans I know, so I'll let you go first, man. What'd you think of this game? You were at the game, too.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Yeah, I've seen the condensed highlights like 7 times. Definitely Mario Cristobal's biggest win. Probably one of his few wins, obviously, as a coach of the Canes. But, I said last week going into the game that I just wanted to see something. I didn't have very high expectations. I just wanted to see some growth, some improvement. And we definitely saw that. So I'm very happy with the outcome. I said going in that I think the O-line is much improved, and they definitely showed that. I saw a brick wall of an offensive line against a really talented and big Texas A&M front four that honestly they were stifled, and I didn't expect the offensive line to dominate the way they did, especially with you got a true sophomore, true freshman on the right side, and Inez Cooper and Francis Malagoa, and they dominated. I mean, Cooper won Offensive Lineman of the Week, and on a national scale. So, I think that's very encouraging going forward to see, just how well that offensive line is. Because if you have a good offensive line, you can compete in any game. But at the same time, offensive coordinator, which Shannon Dawson, was also dialing it up, especially inside the 5-yard line. I was very impressed with his play calling. Getting very creative with motions and play actions and getting guys. I mean, he ran a play that was a Jacoby George touchdown where he had Jacoby George motion in and then just book it back to the outside. And I was like, I've seen that play before. And it was Devontae Smith that ran it at Alabama in the national championship game and it worked like a charm. And we've never run a play like that, like ever. And just to see the creativity in the red zone and just getting points when you need points, again, very impressive. Obviously, earlier in the game, we had some big miscues with special teams. We had the block punt, we had the muff punt, and just gifted Texas A&M 14 points. But I guess the encouraging thing from that is, you clean that up and you probably blow out Texas A&M. So, again, super happy with the offense. On the defensive side, I think there's a lot to be cleaned up there. I thought the front seven was kind of getting pushed around a little bit, throughout most of the game. It seems like they were getting a lot of yards per carry. Jimbo made some adjustments in the second half that kind of, that first drive of the game coming out of the second half, they just ran it down our throat and we couldn't stop them. So I think defense has some improvements to make still. Guidry was dialing up the blitzes a lot. We were getting to Wyman, or Weigman, whatever his name is, all game. He was getting it out though. Credit to him. He was still making completions. I think he's actually a pretty good quarterback. But in general, overall, I'm pretty happy. Again, it's one game. It's a huge win, but again, it's still only one game. They have to put it together for all 12 games. They still have A lot more big games remaining this season. Florida State, Clemson, UNC, to name. So it's a good start for sure this season. But we want to see more of it. You can't just be content after one game. They got to keep putting it together.
Yeah, very good point, man. Alec, what'd you think of this game, man? Big game for dude.
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say about this game, but I'm gonna try my best to keep it short. My main takeaway from the game was that, obviously it was a nice back and forth in the first half. Like Trent said, that you kind of stumbled up on a couple plays there in the first half. And usually those could be big momentum killers. But they kind of kept it together in the first half. And in the second half, even as they started to pull away, Texas A&M kept clawing back. Just when you think they're pulling away, A&M claws back. And the big thing for me was just to see that the Canes just kept pushing, stayed true to their game plan, stayed true to, didn't fall apart in the heat of the moment. A lot of things that we were seeing last year, and it just seemed like they were ready and confident in themselves that they could pull out this win. And you kind of saw that with the end result and just their product on the field. On the defensive side, I haven't seen defense hit hard like this since like the late 2000s with the Sean Spences and all these hard hitters. Every play it just seems like they're cracking dudes, and props to their DC Guidry. He's an energetic guy, and they were bringing the pain for a lot of that game. But I know that they had some injuries on the defensive line, and that was, I think, one of the reasons why A&M was able to keep clawing back. And props to Weigman. I think he is actually a pretty decent quarterback. To me, I didn't really think this going into the game, but I think now, even not just based off the score, I think that the Canes are a better team, just based off of what I saw from the two. And there's a lot of good momentum for that moving forward. Offensively, everything seemed to be working out. They did what they had to do, and also took advantage of some big blow up plays, broken tackle for touchdowns, where when you're staying true to the play, and then it just keeps going on and they go down and score. So they got those big plays, the kick return. I mean, obviously these types of plays are 90% of the time, plays made by the winning team. So you saw a lot of winning traits from them in this game. A&M, I'm not so sure about moving forward, what their future's looking like. I know based off personal experience, when things start to look kind of bad for Jimbo, he kind of hightails it out of there and goes and tries to start somewhere else. So wouldn't be surprised if he's already planning his exit.
Yeah.
Overall, I will say they had a couple of unfortunate situations. It had rained pretty heavy. Trent was there; he saw at the game, and there was a lot of plays where it seemed like A&M was slipping up, especially one of the first interception that their quarterback threw, and I think on one of the Miami touchdowns. But that's just part of the game. That's not a reason to say why they won or lost. But overall, great win for the Canes. Big step for the program and for Mario. And his relationship with the fans, I think, is looking pretty good right now.
Yep. And Trent said, look, their next 3 games, they should win. I think they're going to be obviously they'll be favored the next 3. And then they got that big game at UNC. So we'll go from there. But quick question, guys. You touched on it a little bit, Alec. What is the future for A&M, man? I mean, this is another year Jimbo has lost a game, though. Let's be honest. He probably should have won. He has a stacked recruiting class. He has a stacked team. And you said it yourself, the quarterback wasn't the reason they lost this game. So what's the issue here? Why can't Jimbo get this team together?
So, maybe it's just time to start asking the question that
that's what I'm getting to.
Maybe Jimbo's roster at FSU was just really good, because honestly it was. I mean, you look at that roster, you got 22 NFL players in the starting lineup. So maybe that was it. Maybe he had Heisman greatest season of all time, Jameis, and he didn't have to be the greatest coach. I mean, obviously he had another good season after that, again with another talented roster. and then he came to A&M, and didn't he did he win 9-10 in his first season at A&M with I think he had Kellen
Maybe
Mond,
10, yeah, maybe 10.
Kellen Mond.
ever since he's been tanking. So I mean, I don't know, man. I think Jimbo's a good coach, but I really do think that we're not making he's being made out more like he got a contract. I really don't think he's too deserving of. At least it doesn't look that way. I know Alec has a affinity for Jimbo because of what he brought to FSU, obviously, but I don't see him being that top coach, and at least not anymore. This is too well. I don't want to say too yet because it's a little premature. But last season was extremely disappointing with a very talented roster in year 4 of his tenure, and now he's on year 5 with an equally talented roster and a quarterback that looked like he was pretty decent against the UM. I'll tell you firsthand, he wasn't bad, and just can't get it done. So I don't think their schedule is going to do them any favors again this season. So if Jimbo at the very least can't make a bowl again, then
Got to start asking some real questions, man.
you really did. I know his buyout is crazy, but boy, you gotta think about it.
Yeah, I mean Texas A&M's a big name school. So, Alec, yeah, any last words on A&M, dude?
Yeah, I'm sure they could afford that buyout. They got the oil money. But no, I think that you're right. I mean, it doesn't look too good. I think in the 4 years leading up to Jimbo's championship at FSU, we had teams that I believe were capable of making a solid run, maybe national championship teams before that 2013 season. We always lost stupid games that we weren't supposed to. And it may be true that what got him over the edge was Jameis Winston, one of the greatest college quarterbacks in the last, whatever, 20, 30 years. But he's a bright mind in football, and I think he could be valuable in a lot of different ways. But as far as managing a football team, having the right coordinators in place and whatever team management, like maybe he's losing the grip on that. Maybe he's getting tired of it. He's not as hungry as he was when he was young and coming to fill the shoes of Bobby Bowden. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they're going to look.
All right, guys. On a bright note here, let's go to Colorado against Nebraska. Let's be honest, the first quarter was a little rough for both teams, and then Shadir Sanders took it away. Man, he looked awesome. There's a lot of noise surrounding Colorado. Trent and I were talking about it before we started this pod. There's a lot of videos now of Deion himself saying that his phone's blowing up, of all his recruits wanting to play for him next year. Guys, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, Colorado could blow up in the next couple of years in terms of just how good they could possibly be. I know they've played Nebraska. I talked about their defense a little bit. Matt Rule, obviously, he did something at half, stumbled up like at half field or something. I got them riled up, but Colorado looks good, man. They look like a real team. They're ranked, obviously. Got their big win at home. Alec, what do you think about this Deion Sanders Colorado?
Well, yeah, I think you're right that it's a team to be worried about moving forward. I really can't even put my finger on what their ceiling is this year. Like I just don't know. We'll see once they play that big game against Oregon and USC and a couple of these teams. But man, they have such a good offense, and I don't think that their defense is as spectacular. Nebraska, on the other hand, I don't think they're going to be able to win many games with Jeff Sims at quarterback this year. He's nothing special. So, it just came down to who's going to score more points, I think, in this game. And clearly Colorado is able to do that with Shadur having another big game. Seems like they're throwing the ball a lot, which is fun. A lot of like quick slants and stuff like that, but it's a lot of passing on the offense. This guy Weaver is like their main bull at receiver. They feed this guy, and I think that they're going to continue on with this game plan of just trying to fly down the field, score, see what they could do on defense, and then come back down and score again. And that's what the Pac-12 has kind of always been about. So I think that they can do well moving on in the season. But yeah, I had a feeling that they would be able to win this game in a convincing manner. So it's early for Nebraska, but we'll see. We'll see with Matt Rule.
I remember in the offseason, guys, we did a pod about Colorado for a bit, and we talked about how good could this team be, and we all agreed that this is going to be on the premise of how good Shadir Sanders can be. We were kind of skeptical. We saw the Heisman odds, and we were still a little bit skeptical. Man, he's turning out to be quite the player, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put a ceiling on this team just yet, just because they played a probably overrated but probably still decent TCU team, and they played just a bad Nebraska team that really is not going to be able to score a lot. Is not going to score a lot of points this year. Um, so until they really get tested by a USC or a Utah or whatever the case may be, I think that's when we can really get a good evaluation of what this team really brings to the table. But these first 2 weeks they've answered the call. I mean, Sanders has been just about perfect. It's if you were to have a Heisman debate right now, it's him and Caleb. It's those two guys are way out in front. So, and that's which is crazy to think about. So, and then obviously Hunter is still playing both ways. He's still doing great on both sides of the ball. This guy Weaver is crazy. Like he's over three. I think he's over 300 yards now in his first 2 games. The offense just looks crazy, and it looks like Alex said, it's a classic Pac-12 team with a really good offense. But I think it says a lot. Nebraska was only able to score 14 after TCU scored 40 on them the week before. So I don't want to, again, go crazy off of this game just because I think Nebraska is just not there yet. Matt Rule's first year. But Colorado's the kind of team, especially with Deion, they win 10 games. They win a big one against USC or Utah or whatever. They win a big bowl game. You're going to see a lot of commits, a lot of transfers, and they are absolutely a program to fear if they do well.
Yeah. What about you, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Colorado, they're going to be doing well. And, I'm thinking about them playing Oregon, which I think is next week. And I think it'll probably be the first time where they're getting some serious pressure in the pocket.
No, next week.
Not next week.
After they got Colorado State this week, which is
No,
going to
yeah,
be
next week.
Yeah. They have to play at Eugene, so that'll be
that's what I'm saying. Like that'll be the test.
That's it. Yeah.
And Dan Lanning, their defense, they're going to be throwing everything at this guy.
Yep.
And they're probably going to rough him up. I don't think he's gotten hit too hard yet. So
they have UFC the week after that too.
Yep.
Yeah. So word's still not out yet. Well, the word is out. The word is very loud too. But are they a playoff team? We won't know until they play these teams. But I think there's potential there.
Even if they can win one of two, that would be incredible considering
I think 1 or 2 is a win for them.
Yep. So with that said, let's go to another game that was technically an upset. That was Luke Fickell's Wisconsin against Washington State. You know me, I love me some Washington State. They came up and got that win. Look, the Luke Fickell era starts. This was a game that I don't know if he should have won, but I mean, they were favored and they lost. I believe this game was in Wisconsin too, right? I'm not sure, but what did you quickly think about that?
I'll go. I wasn't able to catch the game again because I was at the game, but it's hard to sleep on Washington State. They seem like they have a pretty good, maybe not every year, but as of late, Washington State's been a pretty good program. And again, I know Fickell has this reputation or whatever, but it's still his first year. It's just not. It's hard to really put a huge expectation on a first year coach. Especially, Washington State's not a bad team. They're ranked 23 now. It's not like it's a really bad loss or anything. I think it was in Washington as well. Washington State's got good players. I know Cameron Ward's a good quarterback. Wisconsin has some talent on their team. I know Tanner Mordecai's a good player, but I wouldn't get too down about Wisconsin here. I think they lost to a good team at home. and it's not a good indication of Fickle at Wisconsin moving forward. It's just they put a tough team in a relatively tough environment, so I think it's okay. You're okay if you're Wisconsin.
Yeah, and by the way, I was wrong. This game was in Washington State. So what'd you think about it, Alec?
I think that, you know, if this game was in Wisconsin, it could have gone a different way. Um, considering how kind of close it was, and maybe Fickle could have pulled out a big win to get the ball rolling. But the Washington State coach, I forgot his name, but he's recent. He's a recent coach. I think it's like second or third year. And in a conference where you're going up against a lot of beefy teams, if you have a big out of conference game, you want to try to win those, and especially when you're at home. So I think it was a big win for Washington State. I don't know where they'll stand, moving forward in their conference. Uh, Wisconsin, the thing about the Big Ten is like there's a really big what do you call it, wealth gap, if you will, where you got these boss hog teams, and then there's everyone else. So Fickle, what he did in Cincinnati, was impressive. Brian Kelly did the same thing in Cincinnati years ago, and for him to be able to get them back, I think they went to the playoff, right? Cincinnati maybe went to the playoff
With
once.
Fickle. No, with Fickle.
They did make the playoff,
yeah, with Fickle.
with Sauce Gardner.
So there's a chance that and Ritter and all these stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that he can get them back. I think he's a good enough coach. He comes from Ohio State, and he kind of knows that system. But it's too early for that. He just kind of get his players in. I'm sure there's not a big transfer portal and recruiting appeal to come to Wisconsin, but you got to give the guy time, and I'm sure that he'll have that program doing well and winning 10, 11 games like they were 5 years ago.
Yep. All right. I'll quickly recap here. Obviously, I picked Oregon to make the playoffs, so I watched them a lot, and I'll say this: they're very lucky to escape with a win there. The score doesn't dictate what the game was. There was a late pick six at the end, but they could have easily have lost this game. Late push to get a field goal, and then a pick six just from a quarterback trying to make a play. But Oregon is extremely lucky to get out of Texas Tech with a win. Obviously, I still have them in the playoff, but they look a little shaky, man. This is what happens with the Bo Nix experience. What do you think quickly about Oregon, Trent?
I think Oregon's fine. I think Bo Nix still looked good, throwing the ball, running the ball. He still got weapons. He's got Bucky Irving, who's honestly he's a stud running back. This was just a shaky game. I think that this is just one of those games. They went into Lubbock. It was a super hostile environment. Texas Tech was jacked up about this game. I know some people even picked Texas Tech to win this game. I think it might have been Kirk. I think Kirk Herbstreit picked this game, picked Texas Tech to win. But I think that's one of those games where honestly you might be a little encouraged because they faced a lot of adversity. Again, another hostile environment, and they still were able to pull it out. Not their best game, but still responded enough to win. And that's not easy to do, especially at Texas Tech. It's hard to play at Texas Tech in a game like this. So I think Oregon will be fine. I don't think that Oregon fans should be concerned, at least not yet. There will be more tests down the road, but to go into Lubbock at night, win a game when it's especially close like this, it's not easy for any team. So I think that I think Oregon's okay.
Yeah. What about you, Alec?
They were down big. I guess they may have had a big second half surge, and things weren't looking too good.
Fourth quarter at 20.
I had this game pretty high up on my college football pick'em, and I was worried. I was watching the game late. But that is what a playoff team does in this situation, or teams that go on playoff or championship runs, they can fight back when they're down and, prove that they are the better team, the winning team. I'm trying to remember about Texas Tech because I think they had a sloppy, no, they lost in overtime to Wyoming. Obviously, not the best loss, but I don't think Wyoming's that bad. Obviously Texas Tech's a bigger program, but anyway, they're playing close in these games. It's a couple close losses. This one they let slip right out of their fingers, and it was at home. Um, so that one's got to hurt. But um, Oregon, they're going to be fine. But Bo Nix is played well in this game and running and passing the ball. And yeah, I mean the main takeaway was that they came back with a vengeance, really, and won this game when they very well could have lost in a bad away game. So Oregon's looking good.
Yeah. All right, not much more to say on Oregon. Look, they escaped. Big shout out to Texas Tech. They fought their ass off, almost won that game. Kudos to them. Let's get to the jersey of Alec Ede. That is FSU. Obviously, they had another big win, not against a great opponent, but the score indicated itself. But Alec, I'll start with you, man. What'd you think of FSU? Anything you saw you didn't like or liked in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it brief. We looked a little sloppy at times, but that's not the story of the game, I don't think. There's been a lot of tension on that. Definitely some drop passes. Johnny Wilson, once again, he's getting a lot of heat for not being able to bring in some catches that he should be bringing in. But we with 10 minutes left in the third quarter, we pulled Jordan Travis is 45-3. So, yeah, we maybe looked a little sloppy. We were able to get the backups in so they can get some good reps in, which I was happy about. But yeah, I mean, expected to win this game, expected to win it big. We're playing BC this weekend, and who knows, if that game will be played. Apparently, there's this hurricane going over there, so by the time this podcast comes out, we'll see if it's even scheduled. But I think the Knolls are the better team there. But anyway, yeah, good win. Now we got to move forward. We got to win convincingly this weekend, and then it's on to Clemson in 2 weeks.
Yep. Alec, quick thoughts on that game?
Trent. A lot of my Florida State fans weren't, totally thrilled, like Alex said, because of the sloppiness and, what have you. But end of the day, it's Southern Miss. They were probably playing to their opponent's skill level. I mean, I know that the offense was a little more on the conservative side for good reason. And it's at the end of the day, Southern Miss couldn't advance the ball at all. They could barely do anything offensively. And this is a team that, in their conference, they were pretty good last year. I know Frank Gore was actually one of the top running backs in the conference last year, and he couldn't do anything against Florida State. You still saw flashes of Keon Coleman hurdling over guys, like just talking about a star. But they were spreading the wealth. Like Alex said, the backups came in. They ran the ball a lot. They ran the ball plenty. And that's just by design. I mean, they still won 66-13, and it almost felt like they weren't even trying too hard. So, Alec, the only thing that would be concerning, Alec brought it up, is the Johnny Wilson drops are starting to get a little repetitive, and that's annoying because FSU fans and the rest of the country know how good Johnny Wilson can be. But he's got to clean that up because they do need him. He may not be their best receiver anymore, at least in my opinion. I think Keon Coleman's clearly the best receiver there, but they need Johnny to make plays. He's a huge playmaker for them, either down the field or in the intermediate game. But he's got to bring down those catches, and I think that if he can get that cleaned up, FSU's offense going forward is really going to be hard to stop. But you can't really look into this game too much.
Yeah, and like you guys said, when you win by that big of a margin, at this point, you're just nitpicking. But look, it is FSU. We have a lot of guys who watch FSU. Kudos to FSU. We all know when the next time their big game is, that's Clemson. But they got to take care of business next week. But that should be a fun game in 2 weeks, man. Quickly, Trent and I talked about it a little bit. That is just how great Caleb Williams has been. Granted, he's played a couple of cupcake games. Stanford, big name, but hasn't really been great in the last couple of years, especially since David Shaw left recently. But look, Williams looks awesome. He's virtually making every play. Everyone sees the highlights. He can make every throw. He can throw an 80-yard bomb, can run for 30 yards, can do a flick of the wrist pass. The guy does it all, man. He really is something to watch. Right, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, and one thing is like, is he going to be in contention to win the Heisman this year again? It's something that's very hard to do when it's twice, let alone 2 years in a row. But the thing is, you got to play flashy and you got to make these crazy plays, and he's still doing all of that. He's still proving that he's the best quarterback, I think, in the country. And as long as he's leading the team, they're gonna have a chance to win every game. Um, and knock on wood, as long as he stays healthy, obviously. But if he's not on that team, I think they're a completely different team. Not to say that they don't have other talent around them, but I really think that he elevates them to a different level. So I expect him to, play like this and be a huge threat to every team that faces them, for the entire season. And that's why I saw them getting into the playoff at the end of the year. At least that's my prediction. So, yeah, they're looking great, and they're gonna have some tough games. I think they play Notre Dame as well, and not just the Pac-12 teams. So those games we'll see. When they're facing a tough defense, how they can respond. But they're gonna be doing just fine.
Yeah, we all know Lincoln Riley's due for a troubling cupcake game where he's going to struggle and probably win by a field goal. But I don't know when that's going to be, but y'all know it's going to come. Quick thoughts, Trent, on Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I picked him before the season to win the Heisman again. I still like my chances there. Obviously it's early; it's still 3 weeks in, but he looks just as good, if not better, than he did last season. He looks like Mahomes straight up. He the way he escapes the pocket and finds someone downfield or in the end zone and just again flicks the wrist and it just is a dart right to their chest. It's pretty incredible. And I know he's not playing the greatest teams, but he's just dominating. And I mean, he went 19 for 21 against Stanford and 3 touchdowns. He came out of the game too. He's just destroying them. I mean, they were up on Stanford 49-3 in the first half. And I think they pulled him. So there's not much to say other than the fact this guy's incredible. He's one of the best quarterback prospects. Honestly, I like him more as a prospect than guy that's the length of Lawrence and guys like that. So I think Caleb Williams is a really special quarterback. And can just do it all, and he's showing it. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, we threw out the word generational a lot, but I really believe he really is generational.
Absolutely. I'm telling you this right now, mark your calendars for USC Colorado, because that's going to be one of the biggest shootouts you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head on that one. I don't think he's played a full game this year yet, right? I mean, I think he's been taken out.
They're blowing out everybody they play. Yeah. They haven't played anybody, but they're blowing everybody out.
Yep. All right, we'll quickly talk about Ole Miss, and then we'll give some of our picks and head on out of here. Look, Ole Miss beat Tulane in Tulane. Tulane had a real chance to win this game. It was competitive for a while, but Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss pulled out late. Look, they look really good. The last couple of years, Ole Miss has always had a great offense. We all know that Lane Kiffin has one of the best offenses in college football. He's quite the character too. Quick thoughts on Ole Miss getting a good win at Tulane, Trent.
I think that's a really good win for Ole Miss. I think they played a good Tulane team, and I think they saw that in the first 3 quarters. Because I think the game was tied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 17-17, right? Yeah, it was 17-17 at the end of the third quarter. And it's Lane. it's hard to say anything else. Just I think Lane really dialed it up in the fourth quarter. And look, Tulane's got good players, man. I mean, they have a good ground game. They still have Kai Horton. Like they got dogs. And again, this game was in New Orleans, so this was not an easy win. I think it's a testament to Ole Miss to see them do what they did in the fourth quarter. Obviously, scoring 20 points. I do think that they want Jackson Dart to be a little better throughout the course of a game, especially if they want to compete in the SEC. Even their division, they're going to need more production out of Dart, I think. But still a big win. I think they showed a lot in the fourth quarter. They got a lot of weapons, but I think it's a good one for Ole Miss.
Yeah, Alec, what about you, man?
I think that the score is a little deceiving. There's Ole Miss pulled away. They had a fumble six with under a minute left, but they scored to go up. I think It's like less than 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. They had a touchdown to kind of separate themselves, and then they got a field goal to go up 10, and and then they had this fumble six at the very end of the game when Tulane was in their last effort. But props to Tulane, man. They are a solid team. They played a hell of a season last year. They ultimately ended it with a win against USC in a New Year's Six bowl. And, um, considering that Ole Miss's offense is supposed to be really explosive and this and that, it seemed like the defense was really the difference maker for Ole Miss is what won them the game. This guy Horton is supposed to be pretty good. I think they did a good job of, especially in the pass defensive backs and pass coverage. Ole Miss looked really good in that aspect, and the quarterback wasn't able to shine as much. But Ole Miss got lucky. They did not win this game big in my mind. I mean, I know the score says so, but uh, uh, you know, it's interesting for them. And like Trent said, going into SEC play, I don't know how they'll fare. Maybe they will improve, but um, props to both teams in this game, in my opinion. But especially Tulane. It's unfortunate to lose that game at home, but they were really in it. They were up at halftime. I think it was tied at the end of the third, so they could have very well won this game.
Yeah. And look, Tulane still has a long season. I do believe they're gonna have a good year. It's a tough team, and look, they've exceeded expectations by years. The fact they're at this level now is pretty impressive. So nothing to hold your head down for Tulane fans. All right, we're gonna make some game day picks here. Believe me when I tell you guys at home, this might be one of the worst college football week slates I've seen in a long time. But there are a couple games that definitely intrigue me. I really want to do it. I really want to pick this team, but I just can't do it. But I do believe it's going to be an extremely close game, and I have Mississippi State against LSU at home. I'm telling you, man, I'm just not a big Jaden Daniels believer. I don't think he's a bad player, but Mississippi State's 2-0. Playing in Mississippi State is probably the most annoying atmosphere in the world with the cowbells. Look, I really like this Mississippi State team. I don't think they're going to win, but I do think it's going to be very close, and it would not shock me if Mississippi State does win. But we'll start with you first, Trent. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's that bold of a pick just because Mississippi State at home, not the easiest place to play. Got the cowbells rocking. But you got to remember LSU's loss was against a very, very good team, Florida State. And again, Brian Kelly just got outcoached by Mike Norvell, but LSU is still. I think LSU is still a pretty good team. They have a lot of talent, and Jane Daniels might be the third highest Heisman odds, like people thought, but I think he's still a solid quarterback, veteran quarterback, been there before, been in hostile environments before. So I do think LSU will still pull this out. Got a lot of beef up front too. They'll have guys that did not play in the FSU game, like Mason Taylor, Mason Smith. So I like LSU here, but I see where you're coming from on Mississippi State. That's not the boldest pick.
Yeah. What about you, Alec?
I think that if Mike Leach was still coaching, God rest his soul, they would. I would probably pick them to win this game. Just because nobody really had an answer to Leach. I don't know too much about this new coach, and they are 2-0, which is interesting. I wonder if this team has something to prove. They want to win for their coach who passed away, and this could be that big game for them. To kind of make that step. But ultimately, I don't know enough about their coach to say he's going to be able to out X and O Brian Kelly and staff. And I agree with Trent. I think the LSU is probably the better team, but they haven't. I don't know what they did in week 2. I think they had some blowout win or something.
No, they came off an overtime win against Arizona.
No, not Mississippi State.
Oh, LSU.
LSU?
They blew out
They blew out Grambling. Yeah, yeah.
Grambling.
And that was a home game, but now they got to go back away. And they didn't look too great against FSU. Not as good as everyone thought they would be. So we've yet to see that they could do that and win convincingly against a decent team, especially an in-conference game. So this is kind of a test for them, but I think that they'll be ready after being shell-shocked with that early season loss in week one. They understand that they can't really afford to slip up in a game like this. I think that they'll be ready and they'll go in there and win the game. But no, it's a good pick, Robert. I could see that happen.
It's also a noon game, and I think that doesn't help their cause. I think if it was a night game, it'd be a little different in Mississippi State, but noon game, I think hurts them a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we all have LSU, so yeah, keep your eyes on that game. Another game that is a little bit intriguing to me. Maybe you guys will see it, maybe you won't. We talked about Texas's big win against Alabama, but Alec brings it up all the time. Sark Mania. These are the kind of games that they might slip
Exactly.
in. Wyoming is a lot better than people think. I watched them last week. Their quarterback's a beast. They coming off a big win. This is a pretty tough offense to stop, man. I obviously I think Texas is going to win. It is in Texas, but don't sleep on Wyoming. I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. What do you think about that, Alec?
Yeah, I think that they will. I think that Texas will lose a game or two or three this year. That is Sarkmania, at its core. And, it seems like the Alabama game probably, in my opinion, means more to that team than winning the conference. I know that sounds crazy, but, they probably had their focus lined in for that Bama game more than they will be moving forward in the season. And, Wyoming did beat Texas Tech, but I don't know. I'm not that bold on this one. I think that being at home and having being a night game at home after a huge win, they're coming back home. The crowd's going to show out. I could see them winning big in this one, but moving into Big 12 play, when I don't know who they play, but they'll definitely play some teams that are giving some problems. Oklahoma looks a lot better this year. That'll be an interesting game. So we'll see about Texas moving forward, but I think they'll win this one.
Yeah. Trent, I think I know where you're going, but go ahead, man.
No, I think you brought up a great point about Sarkmania and about coming off of big wins like they did against Alabama. But I think it's a different team than it was last year, especially. I think people were super high on Texas after they almost beat Alabama last season. Whereas this year they actually beat them and actually handled them in the fourth quarter. I think you're seeing a different Ewers as well, and we might be seeing a different Sark. So, and again, I'm not saying Texas is back. That's not what I'm trying to go with here. But they're still a completely superior opponent to Wyoming, even though obviously, like we said, Wyoming's not that bad. They're coming off a win against Texas Tech week one, but Texas just looks really good right now.
Yeah,
they look like they're just in rhythm. So I like Texas here, and I like them big.
I'm trying to get your viewers at home to sit on your couch and get some popcorn and watch something. But last game that intrigues me, I think you guys might agree. It's the Minnesota Golden Gophers going to UNC. They're 2-0. Look, Drake May's obviously a phenomenal quarterback. He's supposed to be a top 3 pick. But the Golden Gophers are always pesky, man, every year. They always find ways to scratch and claw and get some wins they shouldn't always get. Look, new coach. Drake May is obviously a great quarterback, but this is a team that barely beat Appalachian State last week. I keep my eye on that game. I have North Carolina winning, but that's another one that wouldn't shock me if UNC loses. What do you think about that one, Alec?
I don't think that Minnesota has the brass offensively to win a shootout against North Carolina, and that's ultimately how North Carolina wins games. And I also think that if Appalachian State played Minnesota, they could probably beat Minnesota. Appalachian State's a phenomenal team, historic success in Division II. Or no, they've moved in. I think
they're in FBS now. They're in FBS now.
But you know what I mean? Like that's a solid program. So when I saw that was a close game, I watched a lot of it actually. But when I saw it was close, I wasn't super surprised to see that because the App State, they did it last year against A&M. They obviously did it against Michigan years ago, and they've been there ever since. So, but yeah, ultimately, I think that the UNC offense is going to be the thing that wins them games, and May leading the way. So I like UNC in this game.
Yeah, Trent, real quick.
Yes, it's not often, but I pretty much agree with everything Alec just said. If App State played Minnesota, I'd probably pick App State as well. I don't think Minnesota, yes, they're 2-0, but like Alec mentioned, offensive firepower, they only scored 13 on Nebraska. Colorado just dropped a 40 burger in their sleep against them. So UNC is just going to outscore them. I don't think they're going to really have an answer for Drake May in that offense. And on top of that, they're coming off of a disappointing win against App State. I'm sure they're going to be ready for this game. It's in North Carolina. So I like North Carolina here.
I will say this. If it was in Minnesota, I think I'd actually pick Minnesota to win that game. But look, those are really the only 3 games that I see that are pretty intriguing. I think you guys might agree. I mean, this is a really bad slate of games this week. I will say I actually am pretty interested to watch the Gators play Tennessee at home. That one could potentially be a little bit close, but I don't see them being Tennessee. Any other games that stick out before we go, guys?
Can I just 1 second on the Florida Tennessee? I will be there. I'm going to Gainesville this weekend, to the Swamp at night when the Gators host the Tennessee Vols. And, I have this thing about Tennessee my entire life. They've always found a way to just blow it, like they've always, they if any team is cursed in college football, it's Tennessee. And last year, I think the thing that kind of got them over that hump was Hendon Hooker. And that's not to say that Joe Milton isn't, sufficient enough, but they played a very, very depleted Virginia team and took care of them. And then they played Austin Peay. This is their first big game of the year. And they're going to play in the Swamp. Doesn't matter how good or bad the Gators are, in my opinion, it's really hard to win in the Swamp.
Yep.
And a lot of people are going to be at that game. The crowd is going to show out. Another thing that's interesting is the Gators have played a big game already. They have played against Utah. They have gone and taken those big hits, and they're going to be ready for this game. I am going to go out on a limb, and I know Trent's going to record this and send it to me when I end up if I end up being wrong. But I'm going to pick the Gators to win this game at home.
Bold pick. I see your point a lot. That's why I brought it up as well. In the Swamp, you're right, man. I don't care who the team is. You can lose any week in that environment. There's a couple of environments, and that's always one of them. But I'm just a big believer in Joe Milton. Obviously, he was my Heisman pick, so that's the reason I have them winning, simply because of Joe Milton. But look, if they had any other quarterback, I would agree with you, Alec. It's a good pick, and your track record's looking pretty good, man. So we'll see. What about you, Trent?
It's not the craziest pick, just because he's
right.
It's
a rivalry game.
It is a rivalry game, and it's a night game in the Swamp. Like, anything can happen in a night game in the Swamp. It's just, it's going to be a sold out crowd. It's one of their biggest games of the year. So it's a very, very tough place to play. But I just don't see how this Florida team can win this game just off of an X's and O standpoint. I think Tennessee is a better team than Utah. Certainly going to have more firepower than a no Cam Rising Utah team. I think Joe Milton, although he hasn't truly been tested yet, he's been good so far. This is obviously the biggest test he'll get this year. But Tennessee is good, and they have a lot of firepower on offense. I'm going to pick Tennessee, but it's a good point. It's a night game in the Swamp. As last year, I don't think Tennessee really blew it. Hooker got hurt, and that kind of derailed the whole season. But they might be cursed. So who knows? Maybe the curse continues in Gainesville. But I like Tennessee here. I just think it's a little too much talent, and honestly, coaching too. I think Heupel's done a great job at Tennessee. And Billy's had a little bit of a shaky start in Gainesville again with no quarterback. But even though Mertz is maybe a little better than we thought, but I like Tennessee.
Yeah, Alec, great point. I can't wait to watch. Those are really the only 4 games I'm going to be pretty much watching. Look, I think the Jets and the Tennessee Volunteers are in the same boat in terms of luck. They're both cursed in their own way, and I'm not complaining about it. But look, guys, we all know that week 4 is the week where we're gonna have a lot of fun here. But like always, thanks for coming on. Everyone at home, thanks for watching. We'll make sure to put up on YouTube this week. And yeah, man, appreciate the support.
Go Canes.
Go
Go
Canes.
Noles.